Good morning, everybody. So, first is the introduction of the speaker, myself. My name Rajib Mal. Did all my degrees, bachelor, master, PhD from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. That's my institute. And then worked with Motorola India for a couple of years, and then been with IIT Kharagpur since '94. So that's about 23 years. So we have total 6 hours allotted to us, and we plan to have the following topics discussed. First, we will have a brief introduction to data structures. As we had discussed earlier, last time we had discussed, many of you had expressed that the course should be structured like this. That we start with a brief introduction to data structures and linked list that was specifically mentioned by many of you. Then this was a topic that many of you had pointed out, complexity of the algorithms, especially the big O notation, and then the programming style. So these are the 3 days that we meet for 2 hours each. So first, let's start with introduction to data structure. We know that we have bricks, iron rods, cement bags, wooden planks, and if we get plenty of these, very little use to us. But then these become useful if we can build structures out of them. These are the basic building blocks: the bricks, iron rods, cement bags, wooden planks, etc. But by themselves, they are of little use. But then, if we build structures out of that, it becomes practically useful for different types of applications. For example, we can have bridges, we can have roads, we can have buildings, hospital, office space, and so on. Similarly, we have the basic data items such as int, long int, float, char, double, unsigned, bool, etc. But by themselves, even if we have lot of these are of very little use in solving real problems. We need to build structures out of it, combine all these basic stuff. Some way we organize them, and we have data structure. So depending on the way we organize them, we can have trees, graphs, linked list, spanning tree, stack, queue, etc. These are all built using the simple data types that we discussed, and depending on the application, we decide which data structure is to be used. The data structure, to give a simple definition, is a organization of the simple data items in the form of sophisticated collections of data. And this data structure is a very crucial decision in solving a problem, because the choice of the data structure affects the performance and structure of a application. Now, based on the analysis of the problem, we need to decide which type of data structure to use, and the factors that we consider are the nature of the data that the application deals with, the processes that we need to perform on these data, and so on. In the words of David Jones, says, get your data structures right and the rest of the program will write itself. So just see how much emphasis he gives on selecting a correct data structure in solving a specific application. So many of the good programmers, they agree to this statement that we must understand different types of data structures and select a suitable data structure for solving an application, and then the application solution becomes straightforward. So there are dozens of data structures to choose from. We must understand all these data structures. so that depending on the application we are trying to solve, we will use a suitable data structure. Just to name a few data structures: arrays, linked list, binary trees, multi-way trees, search trees, binary search trees, heap, hash table, etc. But then by themselves, the data structures is a full course requiring 40 hours or more, and we have at our disposal only 6 hours. Okay, for the data structure part only 2 hours. So we decide, based on your feedback, that we will concentrate on the linked list part. But before that, we just thought that we will discuss some very basic idea about abstract data types and so on, so that why we use abstract data types and specially queues, stacks and so on, what is their advantage, what it really means that we are using an ADT and so on, becomes clearer. So the first thing in the abstract data type, we need to understand what exactly is a data type, then we can think of an abstract data type. A data type is defined as a template for creation of variables in a program. So there are many primitive data types that are supported in a programming language such as C. We have int, float, double, char, long int. These are all data types, and we can create instances of these data types into variables. If we write int a, we are creating a variable named a which is of type int. But then what exactly does type int denote? If we say it is type int or type float, type char, what does it really mean? It means three things: that it defines how it will be internally represented or stored in the memory, what is the encoding, specific encoding that will be used. For example, the same 4-bit may store a floating point number or a integer, but the encodings of these two are different, and depending on the type of that variable, those 4 bytes will be interpreted either into a float or into an integer. So the first thing that a data type implies is the representation in the memory. The second thing is the value space, that is, what are the legal values, possible values that this type can assume. For int, what is the range of the values it can assume? Similarly, for float, what are the possible values? The third thing a data type indicates is the behavior. Behavior is what are the operations that can be performed on this type and what will be their result. For example, an int, we have operations of addition, multiplication, division, subtraction, so on, modulus and so on. Now, the division in case of int, the behavior is very different than the division in a float. We call it as integer division. So that is a behavior for the int type. Similarly, the addition for int, there is some way that the addition takes place, whereas for float, the addition, the meaning is different. So the data type determines the representation in the memory, the value space, value that it can assume, and the operations that can be applied on this type and the expected behavior of these operations. Now, we just talked about a data type. What does a data type mean? How do we use a data type and so on? But then when do we call a data type to be abstract? We call a data type to be abstract if it is defined in terms of the operations that can be performed on it and the exact way in which the data is organized, stored in the memory is hidden. But then the question naturally comes, is that why use a abstract data type? What was wrong with using a data type or a simple data structure where we know that how exactly it will be implemented in memory? The answer to is that an abstract data type lets us write program at a higher level. Tomorrow we want to change the exact way the data is to be organized, we can change it. So it makes the program much more understandable. It gives some good features to the program like low coupling, high cohesion, etc. And also we can change the low level implementations without affecting the program and so on. So an ADT is a preferred way to write a program rather than really using a data structure. But then just asking you this question that because this is the question that many had asked me earlier in while I teach and so on. So the question that they ask is that is ADT same as user defined data type? And give an example of ADT, give an example of a user defined data type. How are they different? The answer is no. ADT and user defined data type are very different things. A user defined data type, for example in C, we use the type def, maybe struct, type def struct, and we have a structure for which we give a single name just like int I. So if we do a type def struct into, let's say, student, so we have student as a type, that's a user defined type student, and then we can instantiate student. Student is a structure maybe, and then it has many internal data items, for example name, roll number, rate of joining and so on. So using a user defined data type, we create a type like student and so on, and we can instantiate that type. But it's not an ADT because we access the data elements themselves. We don't access them through a set of operations or functions. On the other hand, in ADT, we don't know the exact organization or the data structure that is used. We just access the data in terms of the operations that are defined on it. For example, a stack is an ADT. We know that push, pop, etc. are the operations that can be used, but we don't know how exactly is the stack actually stored in memory, maybe an array, maybe a linked list and so on. So I hope the difference between a ADT and a user defined data type. Now let's look at some ADTs which are practically used. One ADT can be complex numbers. So to handle complex numbers, we can create an ADT where we define the operations add to complex numbers, subtract to complex numbers, multiply, divide, read, print and so on. So the exact way we store here is not important. We just want to have these operations, and then we can have multiple ways to implement this ADT. So this is our ADT, complex number, and then we don't know exactly where how the data is stored. We just know that on the complex number, once we have a complex number, we can perform these operations on it, add two numbers, subtract, multiply and so on. Similarly, we can have set as a ADT, and here again we don't know how the set is implemented finally, how the data is organized, maybe in the form of an array, maybe a linked list, we don't know, but we know that the operations that we can perform on the set is union of two sets, intersection of two sets to get a set, minus or set difference, difference of two sets. Insert an item to a set, delete an item from a set, the size or cardinality of a set. So, these are the operations we can perform on set, and the set ADT is defined in terms of that. So, we can represent the set ADT as in the form of the operations that we perform on it. The exact way the data will be stored, organized, we do not bother. And we said that if we write program using ADTs, the program automatically gets some good qualities. It becomes higher cohesion, lower coupling, becomes maintainable, independent of the way in which the data is organized, and so on. Later we want to maintain, change the data type, and so on, it becomes easy. We have another ADT. ADT is a stack is a ADT, and then we have the operations on it are push an element, pop, get an element back, create a stack, is empty, check whether the stack is empty, is full, check if the stack is full, and so on. And again we represent the stack in terms of the operations, the stack ADT, in terms of the operations that you can perform on the stack, and the exact implementation is not of concern. Similarly, we have queue as a ADT. We have operations in queue an element, pq, create queue, which returns a queue type, is empty queue returns a boolean, size queue returns an int, and so on. So again we represent the queue ADT in terms of the operations that we perform on it, and list is also an ADT. List is a ordered set of data, and the typical applications where we prefer list is where the data is stored sequentially and processed one after other, normally sequentially. And there are two ways we can implement a list: using a linked list and using arrays. The arrays is the first level programming we know well, and what we would like to really discuss here is the linked list for next hour or so. Again, the basic operations that we must understand on a list are how to create a list, how to traverse a list, how to insert an item in the list, how to delete an item in the list, how to concatenate two lists into one list, and so on. So I hope that everybody is now can answer this question, that what's the advantage of using ADT, why we need to write programs in terms of abstract data types rather than concrete data types. So we had discussed this, that the programs get good qualities, become more maintainable, independent of the way in which data is actually stored in the memory. Someday we may restructure the data without really affecting the program, and the program get higher cohesion and lower coupling, because we don't directly manipulate the data items, but through a set of well defined set of operations. So the list ADT defined in terms of the operations: traverse, insert, create, delete, concatenate. And when we discuss linked list as a implementation of a list ADT, we will be naturally concerned with these set of operations, how to support it using the data structure linked list, how to create, insert an item, delete, concatenate, traverse a list, and so on. Linked lists. Discuss about the linked lists. it is called as a dynamic data structure. We call it dynamic because the size of the data structure can vary during execution. This is in contrast to array, which is a static data structure. Statically, the data size of the array is determined, can grow or shrink. So, the first view of a linked list, we have the nodes connected by pointers and finally terminated with a null pointer. Why do we prefer a linked list compared to array? The main advantage is dynamic size. If we don't know what is the number of items to be used in an array, we need to conservatively define the size of the array, but here we can use whatever size the application requires. And then the ease of insertion and deletion of item, we will see this point that many situations insertion and deletion of item from an array is very difficult. But then as compared to an array, the access in a linked list is sequential, whereas in an array we can have random access, and also storage wise it is inferior to an array because we incur the overhead of a pointer in addition to the data, and if the data size is small, then the pointer overhead is too much, but if the data size is large, pointer still not a big overhead. The other disadvantage is runtime performance. The arrays are stored sequentially. The array items are stored sequentially, and that leads to spatial locality, and that helps in the cache performance because the cache miss becomes low. On the other hand, a linked list, as the nodes get allocated and they are linked to the other data items, the storage tends to be haphazard, and therefore the number of cache misses and the performance of the computer can be lower when a linked list is used. Let me see if there are some questions. So there is a question that what is a concrete data type? Okay, so an abstract data type is one where we define the data type in terms of the operations only we can perform. We are not concerned about the exact storage. So we create a list, we create a stack, we create a queue, and then we do some operations on those stack, queue, etc. But we don't really bother about how exactly is the data stored, where stored. We don't really directly access the data in a ADT. There is in a concrete data. Just gave the example of a structure in C, and then we made it into a data type, let us say student data type. But then we know how the data is stored there. We have no operations defined on the student data type, and then we just access the individual elements of the data type. So in a concrete data type, we have all details of how the data is stored available to us, and there are no specific operations defined on it. We can access the data anyway and do our operations or any functionality that we need. On the other hand, in a ADT, we don't bother about the data. We don't know exactly how the data is stored, what are the data items stored, etc. We just know the operations that are performed. We don't know how many elements are there in the stack or maybe the queue. We just keep on adding and so on. If we want to know what is the element, specific element, we need to get that data through a well defined operation and directly access or change a data item. So I hope that answers the question, and then we have further questions here. JISCE, and the question is that linked lists help in space complexity, but you say that it required large space when then it actually does in array. Okay, good question. See, in an array we say that it is space inefficient because we do not know that what is the space required in our application. So, we have to allocate the space conservatively. We guess an upper limit, let us say educational institute, a class, let us say, we do not know maybe what is the size, and we will say that okay, max maybe 500. So, we allocate the maximum possible, whereas in a linked list we use exactly the number of data that is required at any moment, and then as more comes we allocate. If somebody leaves we deallocate, so the exact data is used, but then it is bit inefficient in the space wise because of the overhead of the pointer and also the performance because of the cache locality. I hope that answers. Now we have further questions. So question is that one, on what parameter we define, okay, we opt either to use a concrete data type or a abstract data type. Okay, see, if it is a local data to a function, then we can use a concrete data type, a variable and so on, because local data type is accessed only inside that function, but if it is across if it is accessed across the program, then using a concrete data type is not a good idea, because it will make the program bad. It will have high coupling, low cohesion, difficult to maintain and so on. So the answer to the question is that for access inside a small function and so on, a concrete data type is good enough, or a small program. But if you are really considering large number of functions, large program, then we have to use abstract ADT. That is a good programming practice. So there is a question here from GGIP that why linked list does not waste space. Okay, the answer is that, let us say we are doing an application where we just keep track of the participants registered in a conference, and let us say we do not know how many participants will turn up, but as the participants come we create a node for them and we use the linked list. So if there are 30 come, we use exactly 30, and some decide to drop out, we delete their name, they left after a day or something. Whereas in an array we do not know, maybe 500, we have to reserve 500. So I hope that answers the question. The next question is, I mean to ask that when we use objects in C++, why do we use structs in C and then perform operations on them? It is far easier in C++. Okay, yes, C++ objects, the classes are actually something similar to structures. So they have their own, classes are basically ADTs, and classes have their own data internally and operations defined on it. But right now we are just discussing about programs, procedural programs, where we are bothered about the structures and so on. But even in case of a object oriented program, we have the ADTs. Class is ADT, but we need higher level ADTs. For example, we need lists, we need stacks and so on. So even there, object oriented program, we need ADTs, even though the class itself is a ADT. Another question is that why is a linked list called a linear data structure? Okay, so let's try to answer this question, that what is a linear data structure and how is it different from a non-linear data structure, because it is often asked question. A linear data structure is one where every data item has a well defined successor. So that way the linked list is a linear data structure, because for any element we know that what is its successor. On the other hand, a data structure such as tree and so on, a data item can have multiple successors. So it is not a linear data structure. Okay, further question, linked list is used to implement trees. Is it not non-linear data structure? No. See, linked list, as I said, for any data item, any node in the linked list, as we will see, we can precisely tell what is the next, what is the successor of that, what is the next data item. So it is a linear data structure. Next question, what is the scope of ADTs in large business applications? Yes, that is the place, large business applications is the place where ADTs become meaningful. We use all these data structures. For example, we use heaps for specific application, we use stacks, queues and so on. So for large applications, the ADTs are really meaningful. Now there is another question, that array is better than linked list and for each applications. Okay, yes, array is useful in the case when we need random access. So any element we should be able to access and we should be able to with low overhead. Just to give an example of a application for which an array is preferable compared to a linked list is a binary search. In binary search, we need to access middle element each time, and in a linked list it will be extremely inefficient to have binary search, because binary search by itself requires random access of the data items that are available. So specific applications, this is just one example of application for which a array is preferred binary search. As more questions come, we will answer them. So let us now examine why insertion in an array is expensive. Actually, insertion in an array is expensive if we want to insert at a specific location in the array. For example, if we have a sorted set of numbers available in the array and we just read numbers and maintain the sorted order. So let us say it is already sorted in this way, 1000, 1010, 1050, 2000 and so on. Now we want to insert a new element 1005. So we need to push all these elements down, create one space and then insert the element 1005 here. So once we discuss the complexity, the next day, we will see that this is a extremely inefficient operation, that we push all elements down, n element down, and then we create a space O(n), whereas in a linked list we just manipulate the links here and in constant time, in a very less time, we can just insert the item here. Similarly, if we delete an item in a certain set of numbers, deletion will also be expensive in array, whereas that is difficult in linked list. So there is one question: can we have an array or linked list? No, see, that question depends on what application you are targeting. So for some applications array is good, for some applications linked list is good. So the answer to your question, that can we use an, should we use an array or linked list, both are useful in specific applications. Let us understand the characteristics of the linked list, how to do the operations, and in the next day we will discuss about the complexity issues, and there we will determine that for what sort of applications data structure becomes more efficient. So the basic discussion on a linked list, we need to keep track of how to insert an element, how to delete an element, and we have a head here which points to the first element on the list, and the last element of the list here is null terminated. So we can traverse a list given the head, go from one to other until we get the null termination. We know that's the end of list. So there is one more question, that can each element of an array contain a linked list? Array is a data structure where it is defined, no, each one is a simple element. An array of lists not normally used. Okay, we have some applications where you use an array of lists. Yes, yes, okay. An array of lists, as we will proceed today, we will see some applications of list, and there are arrays of lists. Yes, I think the question is now making sense to me, that there are some applications where we use arrays of lists, where each element of the array points to a list. Okay. So the word linked means that each element in the list is linked to the successor element. Each node, the linked list, points to the next node and or links to the next node, and that's the reason why we call it as a linked list. So let's look at how we can implement a list, the basic operations on a list, how this will be implemented on a linked list. So the first is to define a node. So in a C program, we have the struct node, and then we define some data item. So we have this gray part is the data item, one or more data item, maybe a dozen data item, and then we have the pointer. So the pointer points to the next node, which is a similar structure. So just see here, this is struct node, and again struct node star next. So it is pointer to the next node, and therefore we call it as a self-referential structure, because it is pointing to structure of the similar type. Now this is our first example of a linked list. This is a student structure, struct student, and then we have the data items here, role, name, age, and then this is the pointer to the next node. And then we create a type here, type struct, type def struct stud, type def struct stud node. So now onwards, node becomes a type, because we have defined a new type here, used type def and defined a new type, and that's the node type. Node type is of the struct stud type. So this next time we can say node star head, because node is a type and we are creating star head is a pointer to the node type. And then we have the head defined in the previous slide, node star head, and we had only this one, the head. Those who are done the C programming, when we define a pointer, such as node star head, actually storage is allocated here for head in the memory, which can store pointer to the struct type. So that's what we have shown here. The head can store a pointer. Head is allocated a memory location, the memory, and it can store a pointer type, and then we create a node here, student node. So malloc size of node. So we get a node created using this node star malloc size of node, and then we make the head point to this, and we have got our first node created. And then we can create the subsequent nodes in the list one after other, use the malloc node, and then each time the last node pointer make it point to it, a next equal to b, b next equal to c, and so on, and we have the linked list ready. Now let's look at the C program here, create list. So this is the operation. So we call the list in terms of only create list, but then this is an implementation of the create list using a linked list. So here we identify how many items will be stored in the list. We will use exactly that many items, and then just one thing to notice here is that in a linked list the first node creation is different from the rest of the node. The first node, we make the head point to that, and TMP is the current node or the last node, we can say. So each time the TMP is the current node at which the next node will be attached, or the last node at which the next node will be attached. So we keep track of the TMP, and then for every other node that is being inserted, we use the TMP next is equal to node star malloc. So we create a node here and then put it on the temp next, and then update the temp to the new node, and we keep on doing it for all the n nodes, and we have our list ready. Now I think there is one more question. Let me just look at the question. Okay, so the question is that in C, why don't we use calloc function to allocate a memory for a node in the linked list? Okay, see, calloc and malloc, if you look at the C syntax, basically it is to do with whether a node memory is initialized or not. And if we really want to initialize the memory using calloc, no problem, it writes all zeros, and then we use it. Or in other case, we just use a malloc, and then we store the data items that are necessary. So really malloc calloc does not really matter to the functionality of the create list, but it's only a small matter of efficiency. If we're anyway storing nodes in the items in the node, we are overwriting all its contents, then use a malloc. But if you don't really overwrite everything on the node, don't really fill up all the items in the node, don't want any uninitialized data, malloc. And if you want to use calloc, it's a small matter of efficiency with respect to whether the compiler first write zeros to all of them or not. So it will work here for our application, calloc, malloc, both will work. But then depending on if you are writing a really large application, maybe you will be a bit concerned about whether to use a malloc or calloc, but the difference is very small. I hope that answers the question. So once we have the code for create list, we can just use it. So we have the head here, node star head, and then memory for head is allocated, and then we make the head store a pointer to the list here by create list, and it returns the pointer to the list. So that's the use of the function create list that we define. Now let's look how to insert a node in a list. We have created an initial list. Now we want to create a node. We want to create a node and insert it at a specific place on the linked list. So let's say we want to insert, we created a node here, and then we want it to be inserted between A and B. So this diagram visually tells what all processing we have to do. Earlier A was pointing to B. Now we need to make A point to the new node, and also the next pointer of the new node to point to B. Then X is inserted at its place on the list. So the program that we write is exactly these two operations that we do. That this pointer pointing to X and X next pointing to B. So that's exactly what is coded here. So the same two things, that we insert node, we create the node, and then we make it first the next of TMP current to point to the current node of next. So current is right now A. It can be anywhere that we want the node after which we want to insert. So the next of that was earlier pointing to B. Now we want to point it to X to point to that. So that is temp next is equal to current next, and then we make the current next is equal to TMP. So that is A will point to X. So that's only the two operations we do. If we visually understood two pointers that need to be manipulated, writing insert node is straightforward. But then if we want to insert the node as the first node, then we need a slightly different operation. So the first node was A. Earlier head was pointing to A. Now the steps are slightly different, that now we make head point to this node, and also the node that head was pointing earlier, we want TMP next to point to that node. So that should be the first step before we overwrite head with the current node's address pointer to the current node. We need to first take that data which was stored in the head and then assign it to TMP next, so that we have the pointer established here. This one is the first, and then we make head point to this. It cannot be, we cannot interchange this. But then inserting a new node, we can have many variations. Already seen that inserting as the first element, inserting as the last element, inserting before a given node, after a given node, before a given value, to traverse the list until we get a value, and then before that value, after a given value, and so on. So there are various possibilities of insertion, and each of these, the insertion procedure is slightly different. And then in a exam or a test, we can ask any one of the variations. So if the basic understanding is clear, then it won't be too much of a problem. But then if we are not understood, just have understood only one way by the code, then it becomes difficult to answer the questions. But then let's we have seen the basic aspect, which was clearly that two pointers need to be managed, and then in each case we can handle. Let's see. So it looks like there is one question in the chat box. Okay, so the question is when to use array list compared to a linked list. See, linked list, as I said, is space efficient, right? We use only a as many. So list, we said that there are two implementations, an array or a linked list, and then we said that linked list space efficient. If we don't know exactly the number of items to use a linked list. Maybe that's the answer, that we use it when we don't know exactly how many items will be there. So let's look at some variations of the insert. So the first variation we look at is before a specified node. A specified node is given some value which we call a key. Maybe in a student list, it may be the roll number. Before a roll number, we want to insert. So the convention that we use in our program is that if the value is given as negative roll number, then it will be inserted at the end of the list, and if we are given a positive number, then we find its proper place and insert it, depending on where exactly. So given the roll number, we want to insert at its correct place. If it is a negative, we insert it at the end. If it is if it is any other roll number, we insert at a proper place. But then three situations arise. One is that it becomes the first node, and we know that first node we need little bit processing, because we need to have the head node point to this, and then what head node was earlier pointing, that we want the next node, sorry, the next pointer of this node to point to that. And if it is an end, then this node has to be null terminated, and then we make the current last node point to it, straightforward. And in case it is somewhere in the middle, then we need to do those two pointer assignments, pointer manipulations, which we had discussed. So let's look at the code. So all those three cases we do here. First we look at the roll number, we allocate the new node, store the data to be inserted, student data, and then if we find that it's to be inserted at the beginning, then we make the head node, the node that the head node was already pointing, to point to new.next should point to that, and the head node points to new. Okay. So we are saying that we will insert it at its appropriate place. If it is in the beginning, we do only the head node point to this, and the one that the head was earlier pointing, we make this node to point to that. And then the next case, this is the middle. Okay, in the end, so we traverse to the correct place on the list, and until we get the value, until we don't, it's not equal to roll number, we just keep on going to the next until we reach the roll number at which it is to be inserted. So if we get the last of the list, then we just null terminate, and then the last node points to it. Whereas anywhere in the middle, those two pointer manipulations we do. So this node q.next, this node points to that, and new next points to it. And if we want to do the insert, just call insert and give the head, and the proper insertion will be done. We'll read the item, create the node, and it will insert. That was the program that we did. Now let's see the other operation, that's deleting a node. So now we want to delete a specific node. So for deleting, how many links do we need to change? For inserting, we saw that if it is in the middle, 2 links to be rearranged. If it is at the end, then only 1 link, assuming that we have null terminated our existing node, and at the beginning we just saw that head needs to point and so on. Now let us say we want to delete a node in the middle. How many links do we need to alter? Answer is 1. Only 1 link we need to alter. So A was pointing to B, now we just make A point to C, and then we delete B. So this link that was existing with B also gone. So a single pointer manipulation can just eliminate a node from the list. So then the program becomes straightforward. We want to delete a node, and then the TMP, this is the current node and this is the TMP, and then we just make current.next is equal to C, and TMP we just free TMP. So this is not really necessary. Just TMP next, current next is equal to TMP next. So we just change this one node, and anyway we are deleting TMP, so need not even have this free TMP. So one node manipulation is enough. So deleting the first element, again we have the cases that we want to delete the first element. So then the head pointer needs to be pointing to this, and then we free this, and delete anywhere else we just make the previous pointer point to the next pointer of this current. So let's write the program. So again 3 conditions arise, that we are trying to delete the first node, last node, or any node in between. So based on that, the 3 cases are written here. Delete the first node. So in the first node we just make the head point to the next of the node being deleted, and then we delete just one manipulation. And otherwise we want to find a specific roll number and want to delete it. So if element may not be found, then we just say that delete cannot be performed, and delete the other any other element, we just make this point to the next and then delete it. And then we can also handle the last node case, that we just null terminate the previous node and then we delete the current. So just to summarize, for insertion and deletion we have a graphical understanding of what happens. There are different cases of insertion and deletion, half a dozen of cases, but if we have a graphical understanding of the pointer manipulations that need to be done, then the code is straightforward, even though there are many variations. But if we just look at a specific point of code without getting the understanding of a higher level understanding in terms of the specific link manipulations, a visual understanding, then writing the code. Now let's look at the other types of linked lists. The one that we looked at is the singly linked list. So here every node points to the next node, but we can, and the final node is null terminate. You can have a circular node, so these are variations of the linked list. You can have a circular list. So the last point, the last node points back to the first node. Important data structure, circular list used in buffers and so on. You can have doubly linked list. We want to traverse both ways, then we need a doubly linked list. We can have circular doubly linked list if we want a fixed number of nodes and again be able to traverse both back and forth. So in a circular linked list, typically we have a fixed set of nodes and then we just traverse them. For example, buffer, we have a limited buffer, and then we just maybe some 100 items we can store in the buffer, and then the buffer, if it is full, we start writing from the old node, time shared scheduler, and so on. For many applications, circular lists are being used. So on a circular list, we need to keep track of two pointers, the first node and the last node. So as we consume items, we may move the first node. What is the next node to be consumed in a buffer indicated by the first node, and we may insert more items as it comes to the buffer at the last. So just small variations in the code. We are not discussing the code really because limited time. For the circular list, we just need to manipulate the two pointers. For example, when the buffer becomes full and then we want to have one more node inserted, then one item is deleted or overwritten, the first node points to the next. So I think there are some questions, can see on the chat box. So the question is that, does free function free the node memory or the node memory as well as pointer memory that would use to refer the node to be deleted? Okay, see, the question is that if we say free pointer, what does it do? So the free pointer is that the memory which was allocated using the pointer, I mean the memory to which the pointer was pointing, only that is deleted. We were storing the pointer to that memory somewhere, and that is for us to delete. Actually, we had overwritten. In our example, we had overwritten that, and we just delete the memory that was allocated at PTR. If we say delete PTR or free PTR. Okay. So there are small variations in the code in terms of the manipulations of the pointers. We're not discussing that. So doubly linked list, again we keep track of two pointers, the head, the list, and the tail of the list. We can traverse both ways, and each node has two pointers. Unlike a singly linked list, we have two pointers, one pointing to the previous node and one pointing to the next node. So let's make a quick comparison between a doubly linked list and a singly linked list and see where to use which one. So if we are wanting traversal from one element to its previous element, or maybe sometimes to the next element, our application demands that, then we use a doubly linked list. So let's say we want also, if we want to do specific operation like we insert before an element, then the operation becomes easier. In a singly linked list, inserting before, we need to have little bit more complicated code. But then the doubly linked list has many disadvantages. For example, we need to store a additional pointer, some more memory space, and then whenever we want to insert or delete, we need to do more pointer manipulations, and therefore the doubly linked list will be slower compared to the singly linked lists for insertion and deletion. And also writing the code becomes more difficult than singly linked list, and therefore more errors are possible. So it's a good idea to have a visual understanding of the what operations, link operations take place, and then look at the code. We had animation here on the PowerPoint slide, that how exactly in what order which link gets deleted, added, and so on. But unfortunately on this it's not showing the animation part. But then the slides, I hope that you have got the PowerPoint slides and you can see the animation there. So if we want to delete a specific node, then we just need to have these two pointers established, So the previous node of the node to be deleted points to the next node of the current node, and the previous node of the next node needs to point to the previous node of the node to be deleted. So these are the two set of operations that we need to do. Now let us look at one more operation on the list is traversing. So traversing on a singly linked list, we have the head pointer available and we just keep on following the pointer and printing the contents or maybe manipulating the contents until we reach the last node and then find that it is null terminated, and then we stop there. So the code is straightforward for traverse, much more straightforward than the insertion or deletion, because there were multiple cases to handle. Here it is straightforward. We just have the temporary pointer variable p point to the head and then keep on continuing and displaying or something of the current node and go to the next node until we reach the last node. And traverse easy, just call it with the head and then traverses all the nodes, the list and list. Now let's see some example applications of a linked list. So this will also make clear that why we don't use a array list here. Need to manipulate polynomials. So a polynomial of the form 9 x to the power 8, 4x cube, 5x, etc. We have many polynomials and we want to write a maths package or something where we want to handle such polynomials. So we want to do operations on polynomials such as addition of polynomials, multiplication, difference, and so on. So the first thing is representation in the form of a linked list. We just need to store the coefficient, that is 3, and the exponent part here 14. So we have exactly as many nodes on the polynomial as there are terms on the exactly as many nodes on the linked list as there are terms on the polynomial, and hopefully we have this polynomial written nicely in the form of sorted or descending exponent. If not, we have to write insert element such that it inserts in the correct place. It may not be at the end. So our insert node polynomial term would be such that it will insert it and we have the linked list sorted in terms of the exponent. But then if we use an array, we have to determine exactly what is the maximum exponent that are possible and have all the terms allocated in the array. Many of them will be empty, but then here we just have as many nodes as there are terms in the polynomial. And also even though we might argue that the polynomial is not sparse in some application, but then as we do operations on polynomial, we are likely to get a sparse polynomial. Similar applications of sorry, I have written here application 3 because I have written many other applications, and then because of the time constraint I just deleted those applications without really deleting. So there are other applications, for example manipulating sparse arrays, sparse matrices and so on, where we can use linked lists efficiently. So here we use each node stores the coefficient and the exponent, and we store them in sorted order for efficiency operation. There is some question, let me just have a look. Okay, so there is a question there that why is it easier to insert or delete before a node? Okay, see in a linked list, the code that we saw is after a node. So, once the roll number matched, after that we deleted. But if we want to delete on a node which is previous to that roll number, then what we have to do is we remember the pointer of the previous node using some variable and then do manipulation. So, it is little bit more complex. We need to remember the previous node, pointer to the previous node, because we cannot traverse to the previous node. We should have, while traversing, we should remember what was the previous node and then we can manipulate, because once we reach a node there is no way we can go back to the previous node. So, that is the complexity. So, the operations that we are interested on the polynomial are adding two polynomials. So, here the work that is involved is find out the, if two exponents and the two polynomials that are to be added have exactly the same exponent for some terms, we need to add the coefficients. Otherwise, if the coefficients do not match, then that we do not have to add, we just have that term, that node created on the new polynomial. So, the operations of addition becomes easy if we have sorted order of exponent. The nodes are arranged in sorted order of exponents. So, the algorithm is that we scan starting with the highest exponent and then compare on the other list. If they match, then we add the coefficients. If they do not match, then we just, if it is greater than the other polynomial, then we just transfer this to the new list or copy this to the new resultant list, and so the new polynomial to be obtained will need at most p1 plus p2 space. So, this just explains the operations that need to be done. So, a and b are the two polynomials and then we compare their exponent. If they are equal to, then we just add them, otherwise we just create in the resultant list. So, here these two have equal exponent, they just added the coefficient and created a single node on the resultant list. Whereas, if the exponent is different, take the larger exponent and then add that there and then go to the other node and check this and this and add the larger exponent here until you get equal exponent, then you just add those coefficients. So, that is basically the algorithm. We can write that algorithm in a more structured form, I just told informally. So, how do we do multiplication on two polynomials stored on linked list? So, one is that we can take one term on one polynomial and then multiply on all the elements, each term multiply with each term and keep on adding the polynomial. So, there are several exercises you can do. For example, you can concatenate, write a algorithm and the program to concatenate two lists. So, we have two head pointers to two lists. Maybe we just have one list head 2 concatenated just after head 1, becomes a very simple procedure, simple program, couple of lines. We can insert an element in a linked list in sorted order and then we can have insert sorted. We can insert element at one end, delete an element, but what about an exercise? I have not written down here, of course. What about an exercise that we have a unordered list? Now, we want to have a sorted list without using another list. On the same list, we need to do pointer manipulations and get a sorted list. What is the way to go about? Would like to hear if anybody would have some answer, that we have a unordered list and we want to create a sorted list without using a third list. Actually, the one way straightforward is that we just and also we need an efficient procedure. So one is that maybe you traverse each time, find the largest element, transfer it to a new list and delete it and so on, but that will be too much inefficient. Can we have a efficient procedure for sorting a linked list? So just posing you this question. Similarly, we can have this first in first out list. So we just insert at the end, whereas consume from the front. So first those are inserted, A was the first element and it is consumed at the front. We can have last in first out list, something like a stack. So we have the one that was added first, okay, added last, like a stack. So that is popped out first. So how do we print a list backwards? So we have a singly linked list. I am just asking you these questions. Hopefully you can answer or do yourself. If you are not able to do, then I can help answering this either here, or if you want to send me a mail. I had okay, my mail is available on the Google. You can search my mail ID and send me a mail if you are not able to answer this, or you can ask me here, but I don't think that I can answer all of these here because of the time constraint. We are almost running out of time. So how do we, in a singly linked list, we want to print the last node first, then the previous node, then the previous to previous node and so on, and we need an efficient procedure. We don't want to traverse it n times and each time find the last node and print it. That is too inefficient. We need an efficient procedure for printing a list backwards, and the hint is that you can easily do it using a recursive print, a very natural algorithm, recursive print, and it will print backwards. Please try and count the number of elements in a list. Okay, one is straightforward, traverse the list, but how do we do it using recursive? Okay, concatenate two lists we had seen. Reverse a list, how do we do this? That we had only the head pointer given and then the list of n elements, and then we want to write a procedure so that the head points to the last element and then the first element becomes the last element. So the last element after reversing becomes the first element and all the links are reversed and the first element becomes the last element. So how do we write a procedure for this? Acha. So I had only this much planned for you. Now please do these exercises that I gave. If you have difficulty in doing these exercises, please send me a mail, we will be happy to answer. The specific doubts we can answer here. We have only a few minutes left. So let me see if there are any questions from anybody. So there is a question that operations like insertion, deletion are easier in doubly linked list, but previous and next link needs to be changed, whereas only one link needs to be changed in singly linked list. Yes, actually the question is that with respect to insertion at the previous node. So in a singly linked list, inserting in a previous node, we need to keep track of the pointer to the previous node because we cannot traverse backwards. Whereas in a doubly linked list, we can traverse backward. let us say 2 nodes before, 3 nodes before, and so on. We can easily traverse backwards, and then we can change the links appropriately. Whereas, if we want to insert on a previous node on a singly linked list, we need to keep track of all those pointers. What was the previous link, previous to previous link, and so on. So, in that way, the doubly linked list insertion becomes easier, because we do not want to remember the old links that are already traversed. Now, let us see if there are any other questions. Appears to be there are no questions, and a given set of problems to try out. And one thing that I need to specially emphasize is that as far as the linked lists are concerned, visual understanding of the link manipulations is the most crucial, and we had some animations done on the slides which shows what is the order in which the links to be manipulated, how it is manipulated, and so on. Unfortunately, while showing on this medium, we did not have the animations, but still, just using the diagram, we can have a mental picture of the link manipulations. And once we know that, it becomes easy to write the code. The code becomes straightforward, even though there are many variations of every operation. Okay, so I think there is one question now which has come up. Concatenation between two different lists, is it possible or not? Yes, we can concatenate two lists. So, the head node of the one list node, basically we had two head nodes, and then one list which was null terminated. Now, we will not null terminate it, we will just point it to the head node of the next list, and that is a straightforward procedure to concatenate two lists. Just simply appended one list at the end of the other list, just a single link manipulation, that the pointer which was earlier null terminated now pointing to the head node of the second list, that concatenates the list. Very straightforward procedure. So, let me see if there are any other questions. Okay, since no further questions are forthcoming, we will just stop at this point, and we will meet the next day to discuss about the complexity issues, and there we can really differentiate between these different kind of operations, which is more efficient to do an array, on linked list, and so on, and that would be a interesting set of ideas that we will discuss. Thank you very much.